Yang saya hormati, yang berbahagia Tun Dr Mahathir Mohamad, former Prime Minister Malaysia. Yang saya hormati, yang berbahagia Tun Siti Asma Ali, members of the UMNO UKEC, the organizers, fellow Malaysian, ladies and gentlemen. Pertama-tamanya saya mengucapkan terima kasih kerana dapat hadir pada hari ini. Even it is a short notice for everyone to come, and you come in a big force. So I'm very happy with your response, your immediate response to this notice of special talk by Tun Dr Mahathir. I'd like to take this opportunity, of course, to thank Tun Dr Mahathir for agreeing to the request to address the Malaysian crowd, Malaysian community, Malaysian student, Malaysian diaspora in the UK. Although initially we were not quite sure because of the program of Tun Mahathir. Tun Mahathir is here, in fact, primarily to attend the funeral of a lady teacher, Baroness teacher. And that happened this morning. He arrived yesterday evening, and today he attended the funeral, and he's leaving tomorrow by the morning flight for Kuala Lumpur. So despite the busy schedule, he has agreed to the request to address the Malaysian crowd. So please give a big hand to Tun. At the St. Paul Cathedral just now, I was seated next to an Arab guy, Arab ambassador from Yemen. And I mentioned to Dr. Mahathir, said, all the Yemenis knows him very well, and many other people around him were saying the same thing. So it is not just in Malaysia that Tun Dr Mahathir is well known, but even in other parts of the world, especially in Middle East, in Africa, in South America. The MC just now had kindly mentioned some of the legacy left behind Dr Mahathir after he left the premiership, and many of you is aware what the MC was talking about. But lately, people have been talking not so much about that legacy, they are talking about the coming election. Wherever you go, only thing here, there's no more mask call. But at Costa, at Sabah, at Malaysia Hall Canteen, people are talking about it freely. So you're probably aware that on the 3rd of April recently, the government dissolved the parliament, which paved the way for election to be called. The election is going to be held on the 5th of May, and the nomination date has been decided on the 20th of April. As for those who have registered and accepted as overseas voters, the date has been decided. The voting will be held at the Nation High Commission. This is the first time we are organizing it on Sunday, 28th April. So those who have registered, please take note and please be there to vote. But I'm quite disappointed because a lot of nations have been pressing the government for electoral reform. They even heckled our Prime Minister Najib at O2 last year. Vote, they say. But out of the 70,000 Malaysians in the UK, only 1,000 over-registered. What happened to the vote? Ini macam cakap tak suka bikin. So for those who have registered, please exercise your right as true Malaysian, because your vote means a lot of things. If you really been talking about change, the vote can change the government. Do it. If you feel that your vote means a lot to the people, then do it now. So we hope to see you on the 28th of April, Sunday, from 9 o'clock until 7 p.m. 9 o'clock in the morning until 7 p.m. So as for today's talk, I asked Tun as to whether he had any specific topic to talk about. He said that he's talk only for about half an hour or so. There's no specific topic he wants to talk about today. But he's looking forward to answer your question. So not many leaders are really that often willing to take questions. So I hope that you take the opportunity to ask questions when the time comes later. But before that, we listen to Tun M first, because this kind of opportunity, meeting with the nation, has been quite rare. Especially, Tun is a frequent visitor here to UK, but because of the busy schedule, we have not been able to organize anything for Tun to meet the Malaysian student, Malaysian community, expat, and the diaspora. So, make produce this opportunity, and I hope all of us will benefit from it. Sekian saja, saya terima kasih sekali lagi kepada semua yang hadir, dan saya sudahi dengan wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
To deliver his speech to our Malaysians in UK.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. His Excellency, the High Commissioner of Malaysia in UK, Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much in the first place for this invitation to meet with Malaysians living around or in London. I must admit I have not been meeting students much. That is because I'm no longer the Prime Minister. Well, I've been given the subject to speak about it, but I would like to, since you will all be interested in the elections, I would like to add something before we begin the questioning. I find that many people, Malaysians, especially younger people, know very little about the origins of Malaysia. I discovered this when I talked to some of the younger people, and they keep on asking me about things that I thought they should know. But you know, Malaysia is a multiracial country, and being a multiracial country, we are always concerned about the sensitivities of the people living in Malaysia. And so, if there is anything that is not nice to say against any one race, we avoid saying it, and certainly we don't say anything about it in the history books. The Malaysian history books is very sketchy, and you don't learn very much from history. And yet, I keep on quoting George Santayana, who said that those who forget the lessons of history will be condemned to repeat their mistakes over and over again. So you will excuse me if I go back and tell you something about the origins of Malaysia. I will be as brief as possible because I'm quite sure you have other things on your mind which you want to ask me. But I think we should always remember that Malaysia is a multiracial country. And in a multiracial country, the normal thing that will happen, of course, is that you will be very unstable. The races will be pitted against each other, sometimes exploding into fighting and civil wars and the like. We are seeing this in many countries today. People who are unhappy about their situation and who resort to violence in order to change governments or to achieve a better quality of life. But despite the fact that many people say that Malaysia would not be able to survive, much less progress, because of its multiracial character, and the belief at the time before we became independent that upon independence the Malays would expropriate their property belonging to the other races and establish an authoritarian government. But as a matter of fact, this did not happen. On the contrary, the leaders of the Malays, the Chinese and the Indians decided that the country should be governed together, that every race in Malaysia should have a share in the powers and in the wealth of the country. And in order to achieve this, they decided, instead of having one party for each race or a multiracial party, they decided that they should form a coalition of racial parties. And again, many people thought that this will not be able to succeed, but in fact, after we formed this multiracial party in the form of a coalition, so that the identities of the different races are maintained, this coalition of various races, principally the three major races in Malaysia, worked so well that except for 1969, there has been no violence of any significance in Malaysia. And because there has been no violence, as usually happens in such societies, the country was very stable, and the government was therefore able to implement plans for the development of the country. We are not communists or socialists, but we accepted that this communist system of having 5-year plans, and our 5-year plans are not just plans, they are actually executed, and after a series of 5-year plans, Malaysia made remarkable progress, so much so that some people, of course they come from the less developed countries, some people thought that Malaysia is already developed. But the government knows full well that we are not developed yet. We wish to get developed by the year 2020, and that was why we launched this long-term vision plan called Vision 2020. By the year 2020, we expect to be a fully developed country in our own mode, not a copy of the developed countries of the West or the East. And because there was peace and stability, and the government had a very good administration, we were able to make tremendous progress. And if you can imagine that at the time of independence, the per capita income was $350. Presently, it is nearer 9,000 to 10,000 US$. Now, of course, that is not the per capita income of developed country, but in terms of purchasing power, that $10,000 is equivalent to $30,000 US$ in the US, simply because the cost of living in Malaysia is very, very low. But to come back to this need for cooperation, what we call kongsi, sharing within the three races, this has never been achieved anywhere else. In most countries, the indigenous people would insist upon at times expelling people whom they consider to be newcomers. But in Malaysia, not only did we not expel them, but we actually increased their number by giving 1 million citizenship to people who are basically unqualified to become citizens. That is the decision of Tun Dr Mahathir, where after conferring with Sir Chen Lok Tan, the father of Tun Tan, and because of this understanding and willingness to balance the different races in Malaysia, cooperation became possible, and every ethnic group gets fair treatment, not equal treatment, but fair treatment from the government. And as a result, all the different races in Malaysia achieve a higher living standard than most other countries and other people in the developing countries. And we have, as you know, been able to remain peaceful and stable and has developed quite well. We have been holding elections every 5 years. Actually, in 1969, as you know, after the election, there was a state of emergency, during which the government was not functioning as an elected government. There was a period, during the period of emergency, there was a temporary sort of government. It was 2 years in which the temporary government was running the country. That was not counted as a period for the government which was elected. So actually, the next election should be in 1976 or 77. But Tun Dr Mahathir was Prime Minister at that time, decided that we should hold the elections after 5 years. So every 5 years or less than that, we have been holding elections. Our elections generally are not very violent. In many countries, when there is an election, there will be people will be killed or violence would explode, and generally the country becomes unstable during elections. But in our case, although we were new to the democratic system, it was not the system during the ancient, the old feudal days. It was not the system during the time of British occupation. But after we became independent, we hold elections every 5 years, and the elections were successful in pointing out which party or groups should govern the country for the next 5 years. There were the usual demonstrations, but they were not like the ones you see in Western countries. They were quite mild, and I believe that at the end of this election there might be some demonstrations as well. The accusation being that if the government party wins, then it must be through cheating. Well, I've been invited to some Arab countries who are going through their Arab Spring, and they were very happy that after their dictatorships, they are going to have a democratic system. And they thought that if you are a democracy, everything will be well. There will be no problems. But I had to tell them that the biggest problem of a democracy is accepting losing the election. Most people do not want to accept losing the elections. They want to win the elections. Of course, you can't have everyone a winner. So somebody will lose. And invariably, after losing the election, there will be demonstrations, there will be all kinds of violence, because they will accuse the winner of cheating. We are seeing it today in this one country in North Africa. But we hope that since this thing has never happened in Malaysia, that it will not happen in our country. All the preparations have been made for demonstration. Already, before the elections are held, there are groups which accuse the government of winning the few elections before this of cheating. In fact, some of them said that, but for the cheating, we would beat the government. That is what the opposition says today. But we will see whether there will be violence or not. I hope not. It's not in our tradition to have violence in any way, whether it is because of elections or whatever. But we never can tell. There will always be a first time. But the problem with Malaysia, of course, is that it is not integrated. It should be assimilated, but of course we reject assimilation. We decided that we should simply retain our identities. And as a result of that, as a result of going to different schools, the sense of unity is very hard to establish. As a result, we are still very racial in our politics, and this election will be not better, it may be worse, because people are playing the racial issue, and this is, of course, a sensitive thing, might lead lead to confrontations between different races, and that would not be good for our country. It is up to the people to appreciate or not appreciate what has been done to them in the past. Many who were born after independence cannot imagine being dependent, being under a part of a British colony. So once you have forgotten that, you feel less appreciation for your independence. The sense of freedom in an independent country is not as well appreciated as it should be, or it had been in the first few years of our independence. But nevertheless, people in Malaysia are very keen to participate in elections, and that is why we expect people to vote during elections. I'm sorry to hear that of 70,000 Malaysians living here, only 1,000 have registered so far. But do make the attempt to vote, because we are still a young country. We need to have everybody participate in the politics of the country, and we hope that whoever wins, the losers must accept that they have lost. So that basically is the background which I would like to paint, so that when you ask questions, you will bear in mind that certain things are sensitive, and I would not like to speak the truth about sensitive issues. Because people who say they like to hear the truth, but when you say the truth, people resent hearing the truth. One doesn't like to be told in the face that one is not as pretty as you think you are. It's very personal, and it's sensitive. Therefore, you always say how good you look today, but meaning, of course, you look horrible. So I would like to give you more time to ask questions. Then I will try to answer as best I can. I must admit that I have limited time. This is a very dry country. I know among the English people we say if it is dry, it means you cannot drink alcohol. But actually it is very dry. Your mouth gets, no moisture in the mouth, it's very difficult to speak. But anyway, Malaysia is not like this. You know, high humidity in Malaysia, which I asked the tourist ministry to tell foreigners that in our country you don't have to use moisturizing cream. The humidity is enough to make you very moist. But anyway, that's beside the point. I would like to stop there because I really don't know what it is you are interested in. So I'll give you a chance to ask any question that you like. I think Mr. Moderator would like to sit there. I will sit. On my feet better than when sitting down. So I like to stand up. Yes.
Hello. Yes. Okay. As for the Q&A session, we welcome 3 questions.
Excuse me, I would like one question at a time.
Okay.
Don't forget. Okay, I'm already lain mudah lupa.
So, if you have any question, please, there's one mic over here, in the middle.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Azim from LSE. My question is this: competition is good. With competition, we may be able to increase efficiency and maybe reduce corruption. So, having a two-party system, we may be able to create this desired competition. Having said that, how would you convince us to still vote for BN? Thank you.
Well, there has been this expressed desire to have a two-party system, because people feel that a two-party system would definitely give a winner. You can, unless of course they score the same number of votes as has happened in Caracas, Venezuela. After that, of course, they are entitled to demonstrate and burn out a little bit of the town. But a two-party system does not always deliver. The problem is that if you win by a very narrow margin, then the winner, when setting up the government, feels threatened. If any one of his members cross over, the party will fall. The government will fall. So a two-party system, if you give a good victory to the winner, big margin to the winner, then it becomes stable. But if you give only a small margin, then the government that is set up lives in fear of losing its supporters. If, say, 2 or 3 of his members decide to cross over to the opposition, not only will that government fall, but the opposition will form a government. So the incentive for people to jump from the government party to the opposition is very great, because they will be jumping from one government to another government. But if you have a wide margin, maybe 20% or so, a few people jumping over would find themselves in the opposition, because the opposition will not have enough seats in parliament to form a government. So a two-party system is good only when people are very decisive and decide to give a good majority to the winner. But in a multi-party system, of course, it may happen that there will be nobody with absolute majority. So you have a government of a minority government. The party having the biggest number of seats would form the government, but it will be less, in terms of seats, it will be less than the combination of the parties which are in the opposition. That means there will be instability. Now in Malaysia, we practically have a two-party system. It wasn't like that before. Before, the government party is a coalition, and the opposition are broken up into several parties, and they contest against each other and against the government party. And the likelihood is that they will divide up the opposition votes among themselves, giving the government party the majority to form the government. So, because this happens for quite a number of times in Malaysia, now the opposition has decided they should come together and do not fight against each other, do not contest against each other. So effectively, today the opposition is almost another coalition party against the government's coalition party. So there will be two parties actually, effectively. But there may be some clans who might decide to stand as independents. Independents hardly ever win in Malaysia. There was one man, ex-teacher, Malay teacher, who was very good. He was elected as independents about 3 or 4 times. The reason for this is that he is a very sociable kind of person. He would attend to all weddings. He would attend all funerals. He would visit the sick. And if he attends some kind of kanduri, he will also undertake to wash the plates. And because of that, he became very popular. And he gets elected every time. But of course, if the country wants a whole lot of plate washers to become their ministers, they're welcome to have that. But Ministers must be more responsible, must talk about how the country should be governed, not wash plates and attend to kunduris all the time. Of course, you must attend. If you don't, you are risking losing your elections. So in Malaysia, effectively there is a two-party system now. On the one hand, we have the Barisan Nasional. On the other hand, we have the Pakatan. The Barisan Nasional is a true coalition because they have one leader and they contest under one symbol as the BN. Whereas the opposition is made up largely of three parties plus one socialist party also. And they contest each under their own party symbol. Which means that they are not really a coalition. They don't have a leader that they support all the time. So if the opposition wins, although it is a Pakatan, but it is not a coalition, they may have some problem with each other. Currently they are having problem deciding which seat should go to which party. So that is the situation in Malaysia. If you see the situation in England, in the UK, you find that for a long time they had a two-party system, and then some in the last election the Liberals came up again, and because of there being actually three parties, none of the parties got an absolute majority, forcing the party that has the biggest number of votes to join up with the small minority party. And when you join up, when the winner, the one with the biggest number of seats, but not 50%, biggest but under 50%, therefore not able to form a government, then teams up with the smaller party. You have a situation where the tail will wag the dog, because the smaller party joins the big party so as to give it a majority. Then the smaller party, knowing that without that party the government would fall, the smaller party will make a lot of demands. They want the best ministries, etc. And they will always threaten the coalition, the post-election coalition, that they will cross over if they are not given something that they ask for. So that is the situation. There is nothing, you cannot say that there is any system that is absolutely good. All systems are good up to a point. If you abuse the system, then it doesn't work. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Hello. To this question, Tun Mahathir, welcome to London. There's two parts to my question actually. The first part is, I represent Radio Free Malaysia. It transmits from London in Bahasa Malaysia to the rural folks in the kampongs. Why is the government spending billions of ringgit of the taxpayers' money and attacking our website almost every day, jamming our frequency? Has the government got something to hide? The second part of the question is, you seem to be the most successful Prime Minister in wealth acquisition. Could you give the Rakyat here an insight in how we could acquire wealth like you?
How we could acquire what? What was the last part of your question? How we would acquire?
The last part of the question is, you are the most successful Prime Minister in wealth acquisition. Could you give us an insight to the Rakyat here, how we could acquire wealth like you?
Then I'm a rich man. Well, that is, for a long time, the broadcasting station, the TV station were under government control. And until today, it is still under government control. The government, of course, is a government that was formed after elections. It is the choice of the people. In Malaysia, of course, you don't like the government, you can always vote for the other parties, and they will form the government. But when they form the government, they too will be using the same money for the same purpose. So it is not unique to us. It is something that the government pays for, and you cannot pay for an organization that does nothing except criticizes the government. We give what we call facts, but you, of course, will not accept that these things are facts. As to my wealth, I am a rich man. Why I am a rich man? I served the government for 29 years as Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and Prime Minister. Now the government pays for practically everything that I need. It gives me a house, the electricity and the water bill are paid by the government. I have a car, I travel around in the car. If I want to fly to London, the government pays for the ticket or provides me with an extra. So the money that I receive is kept there because I don't need to spend any money. The government provides for everything. My salary when I became Prime Minister in 1981 was 8,000 ringgit. Is that big sum? No. You know how much they pay executives in the private sector? 180,000 ringgit a month. Yeah, I get paid 8,000. And when I retired, I was paid 20,000. At the time of retirement, I was paid 20,000. I saved all that money. I don't have to spend the money. Now I have some money. I am not a rich man according to the definition of today. But I have sufficient money to live a good life. I don't need much. I have never aspired to be a great spender or anything like that. I live within my means, and I advise people, even countries, to live within your means. I tell the Greeks and I tell the Europeans in an article which I wrote in the Financial Times, I think, that if you spend more than you have, you are going to be a bankrupt very soon. I am not a bankrupt. In fact, if you like, you can examine the whole list of investors in Malaysian shares. You will not find any share attributed to me. I don't buy shares, I don't borrow money, and therefore I'm rich.
Saya terima kasih, dan saya lidah ini bahasa Inggeris tak berapa pandai sangat. Boleh, saya tak cakap lemas Melayu lah.
Boleh.
Boleh. Saya sebagai wakil daripada yang lain, kita dekat Malaysia yang masalah saya tengok bila kami student yang baru nak bekerja, jadi kami banyak tak berpuas hati dengan macam mana government, macam mana tempat kerja kami, orang-orang yang senior bekerja dan cara kami bekerja. Macam dululah, zaman dulu kita download agak lambat sikit internet, sekarang makin maju, jadi kami lebih cepat. Tapi kebanyakan staff government and like PMB, Petronas or kerajaan, diorang tak nak terima banyak idea baru daripada orang-orang muda. That's why kami di sini sambung master, sambung PhD untuk lari daripada bekerja. Setelah 2 tahun kami bekerja. Jadi saya nak tanya dekat sini, sebenarnya macam mana untuk Malaysia, kita dah diberi infrastruktur, kita telah maju lah. Semua benda kita ada. Saya tengok di UK pun kita lebih kurang macam UK. Tapi saya tengok attitude dan mentality orang Malaysia sangat berbeza. Dan itu yang saya belajar kat sini.
Tolong teruskan kepada soalan.
Jadi saya nak tanya, apakah yang kita perlu buat untuk anak muda lah, supaya bila kita dapat mengubah sistem di Malaysia supaya lebih bagus. Contohnya semua orang tahu bila di kerajaan, untuk kita pergi ke tempat kerajaan untuk buat something, untuk bayar bil something, kita sentiasa tak puas hati. Kita nampak orang ada penjual tudung, orang ada, and kebanyakan KPI orang-orang kerajaan ini dia bergantung kepada seniority. Jadi budak-budak muda terasa macam, oh bila 1 year orang bekerja bersungguh-sungguh and banyak projek yang diorang buat, tapi semuanya dapat KPI yang rendah. Dan yang baik semuanya
Okey.
dapat dekat sini.
Terima kasih kepada soalan.
Jadi saya nak
Silakan kepada Tun untuk jawab.
macam mana? Benda-benda. Terima kasih.
Sebenarnya tidak ada sistem yang 100% perfect. Semua sistem apapun yang kita perkenalkan mempunyai kecacatan. Ini kita tidak dapat elak. Semua orang tak puas hati sehingga dia dapat jawatan. Bila dia dapat jawatan, kelakuan dia pula sama dengan yang lama, orang lain pula tak puas hati. Jadi this is a perennial problem. Kita cuba seberapa yang mungkin untuk memberi peluang kepada anak-anak muda. Tapi sekarang ini competition antara anak muda is very tough. Pasal banyak yang penilaian. Kita selalu tak puas hati lah. Apa penilaian dibuat pun, kalau kita dapat, baru kita puas hati. Jadi penilaian, sistem penilaian ini semuanya tak baik. Jadi kita cuba baik, bahkan yang berada, yang bekerja sekarang ni dalam kerjaan jawatan tinggi, dia orang dulu pun komplain macam ni juga. I know because I was around. Saya dah lama dah dalam kerjaan. Saya pergi jumpa student di mana-mana. Soal yang sama ditimbulkan, tak puas hati. Tapi saya harap bila saudara dapat balik bekerja, cuba memuaskan hati orang yang di bawah, supaya mereka dapat naik pangkat dan mungkin kalau mereka lebih baik daripada kita, maka mereka naik atas kita. So you will be left behind because of your efficient, you are less efficient berbanding dengan orang yang baru ini. Tetapi saya garanti any system that is used ada kecacatan, ada yang puas hati, ada yang tidak puas hati. Terima kasih.
Can we have all the anyone? If you have any question, please stand nearby the mic so that we can make it smooth.
Good afternoon, Timothy from UCL. My question would be, what's your view, the future of Malaysia? Should opposition win, seeing that many do not have experience or may not have experience in running governments, and as well as putting theory to practice, and as you mentioned earlier, the lack of unity?
Thank you. Well, fortunately, we have been given a preview of government under what we call the opposition party. Actually, when they win elections in the states, they become the ruling party and we became the opposition. And we were able to watch them administer the states where they have won. I'm afraid that more people complain about their administration than they complain about previous administration. The problem is that these people do not have the experience of running the government, a country. For example, let's take the manifesto that they made. Their manifesto consists of saying that we will collect less taxes, we will not collect toll, we will give everything free, and a lot of things are to be given away. At the same time, they are not going to collect enough revenue to finance even the administration of the country. You have to have a balance between the money that you collect as taxes or as rates for the government, because that money is going to be used for paying the staff and also for the development of the country and for creating scholarships, etc. If you say you don't want to collect taxes or you collect less taxes, it means you have less money. But at the same time you say, well, we want to improve the lives of people and we want to give them all kinds of things.
But if you have no money, you cannot give them anything. So collecting money is a part of government's job. It's unpopular. But if the government wants only to be popular and say, well, we won't collect taxes, we won't collect fees, we won't collect tolls, where is the money? Where is the government going to get the money to pay for the running of the government? Now, recently they said they will downsize the civil service. We have about 1.2 million people working for the government. You downsize that, what happens? There will be a lot of unemployed people. And when they are unemployed, of course, you have to help them. But where do you get the money to help them, because you are not collecting taxes? So we see what has happened to, let's say, a state like Kelantan. Money was given for them to have a filtration plant for the water supply. It's taken 5 years. We still cannot drink the water from the tap in Kelantan. In fact, it's so murky that you cannot even use it for brushing your teeth. So that is, when the government is inexperienced, that is what is going to happen. Penang tries to outdo others, of course. It's run largely by the DAP. They have been able to partially succeed, but not succeed. For example, they want to build something in some place. They just pull down shops and hawker stalls and houses and all that. That is not the right thing to do. So whether people will enjoy life under the opposition government, I'm not so sure. But what I am pretty certain is that if the government is made up of 3 parties, namely the DAP, the PAS, and the Keadilan, they will never agree, because each is pulling in different direction. On one hand, PAS wants to pull it towards the Islamic government, and the DAP says over-minded body. So obviously they cannot agree among themselves. And of course, Keadilan is very simple. If you can make Dr. Sri Anwar Prime Minister, there will be no more question. They tell everybody that they have organized themselves to make their leader the Prime Minister. That is all, not very ambitious. But in order to be supported by everybody, he tries to be popular with everyone, and he's popular with the Arab Muslims because he's a great Muslim preacher, and he prays and he conducts the prayers and all that. On the other hand, he believes in justice for the Israelis and the rights of the Israelis to secure their security, which includes, of course, sinking ships in international waters, building walls, killing Palestinians, and at any one time there will be 5,000 Palestinians in the jails of Israel. For any case where an Israeli soldier is captured by the Palestinian, then they will release 500 of these in exchange for 1 soldier. That is security for Israel. I'm afraid I don't agree with that kind of securing yourself. And then we have, of course, the DAP and also about being too liberal. I'm not a very liberal person. I think that men should marry women and not men marry men, women marry women. I think that's one way to reduce the population, of course. If a man marries a man and women marry women, there will be no childbirth. Unless, of course, they are not loyal to their partner. So, the opposition, I think, would not give you a good government. Of course, I'm biased, I'm in favor of BN, but you can check whether what I say is true or not. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rowena from the University of Oxford. Tun Dr Mahathir Mahathir, thank you so much for your time and being so honest and candid with all of us here today. I think we all appreciate it. My question is actually quite simple. I studied history at a degree level, and I understand the importance of history, but I think Malaysians, we forget very easily, and unfortunately you don't have you every day to give us a good history lesson. So how can we promote the study of history within society, within academic scholarship as well in our universities? Thank you.
We can learn history if we are prepared to be told that some people in our group has done something wrong. That is not defensible. If you read history anywhere, it never tells the whole truth. For example, the British maintained that it was Wellington who won the Battle of Waterloo. But the Germans say, no, it wasn't Wellington, it was Blücher who came to the rescue of the British forces under Wellington. So each country writes in favor of its own. So it is fair to be slightly inaccurate. But when you give, you have a history book that only give a sketchy account of what actually happened, then you are not learning anything. And yet, as I said just now, if you forget the lessons of history, you are going to repeat your mistakes over and over again. So can the Malaysian people, multiracial Malaysian people, accept being told the truth about the struggle for independence, about the struggle against the Malayan Union and other things? We are not told a lot about those things, because if you tell the truth, one party feels unhappy about it. And we in Malaysia, we avoid having confrontations, so we tell lies so that we can be nice to our partners. So if you want that, I think you may try writing yourself the truth and do some research. I get a lot of PhD people coming to see me asking for my explanation of things in the past. I tell them, because after that they are going to write their thesis, and if there is any blame, we can blame the thesis writer, not
Good afternoon. Welcome to London, Dr. Mahathir. My name is Brian Moraes, and I'm an airline captain. And because I'm a pilot, I guess I get a better overview picture looking from above. So my question, firstly I wish to make a comment on your earlier analogy of how Pakatan is going to cost all the promises that they made. And I think, as far as I understand it, they are hoping to cost it by reducing corruption to a great extent and introducing good governance, which I think a lot of the Rakyat is hoping for, whoever governs after the elections. I also noticed, I've been following a lot of your speeches and your comments on your blog, and there seems to be a tendency on your part, sir, of always talking about racial issues, you know, what will happen if this happens and what will happen if that happens. My personal experience suggests that young Malaysians today have gone beyond racial boundaries. I think their thinking is different from, we are orang lama, you and I. I think our thinking is still very skewed towards the old thought. But I think the young are not concerned about racial issues. What are your comments? Thank you.
Firstly, about corruption. There is an assumption that anybody who is in power must be corrupt. I would agree to a certain extent. Power corrupts, as you know, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So people who are in power may be corrupted, but it's not necessary that they are corrupted. People who are not wielding such power assumes that people in power must be corrupted. And of course, if if you have a change of government, then action will be taken to penalize or to take the person to court for corruption. But corruption is not the easiest case for you to bring proper evidence to the point of gaining a conviction. Because people say, well, I know he's corrupt, you know, he took money from me. Would you like to appear in court as witness? No, I cannot do that. You see, everybody says there is corruption, even says that he has been a victim, but you have to appear in court and tell the court that this is what happens. But most people do not want to go to court to be a witness to any corruption cases. Therefore, the number of corruption cases in Malaysia is less than what it should be. On the other hand, it is not true that the government is absolutely corrupt as alleged by the opposition. The duty of the opposition is to paint as bad a picture as possible of the government in power, so that they will be elected. And once they are in power, they will become just as corrupt. This is happening even now. If you want to do a proper investigation, you may find that it is difficult to prove in a court of law, but definitely I believe there is corruption in the government and also people who in some way has some power or other. So I wouldn't say that this government is not corrupt. There must be some corruption, but it is not true to say that the government is absolutely corrupt and they are all very rich, etc., etc. Prove it and the court will take due action. But just saying it outside, how do you know he's corrupt? Oh, I heard from somebody. You go and ask that somebody, how do you know he's corrupt? I heard from somebody. It's always like that. You see, in a court of law, you must come up with real evidence. Now, with regard to my talking about racial issues, maybe the Malaysians of the future wouldn't care about races, but today they care. The present election is more racial than ever before. The whole argument is based on race. And the unfortunate thing, or the clever thing that the opposition has done is that they raise a racial issue, and if you rebut, then you are racist. When I rebut their argument, when I argue against what they say, then I am a racist. But then they were the first to raise up this racial issue. They say, for example, that let's take Malaysia, which is the slogan of the opposition. What is Malaysia? Or it is about the people in Malaysia are not equal to each other, and that in Malaysia, the Malays has all the power and deny others everything. They don't go on basis of merit. So that is an attack on the Malays. But the Malays, if they reply to that and point out that the other races also have privileges, that is racist. For example, if I say, well, it is true that the Malays have got certain privileges with regard to their language, their religion, etc. But the others also have got privileges. Only in Malaysia do people of foreign origins, and they are foreign because they insist upon identifying the country that they come from, only in Malaysia do we allow for schools in the language of people who came to Malaysia. And not only they can perpetuate their language, their culture and all that. We are very lenient. Even in Singapore, Chinese schools are not allowed. But of course in UK, I don't know whether there are Chinese schools paid for by the government. You are here, you may know better. I wouldn't dare say that. But in Australia, I couldn't find a Chinese school. In New Zealand, no Chinese school. In America, no Chinese school. In Germany, no Chinese school paid for by the government. But in Malaysia, we have Chinese schools and Tamil schools paid for by the government. And we allow them to continue with their language. to the point where they don't understand national language at all. Now, I had to give a speech to some petty traders in my hometown. I found I couldn't speak to them at all because they don't understand English, they don't understand Malay. So I had to use pidgin Malay. Why? Because in other countries, if you are an Australian, you speak Srine. If you are in America, you speak American English. If you are in England, you speak English. But in Malaysia, there are still people who cannot speak Malay, which is the national. Saying that you are not understanding Malay when you are a Malaysian, wrong. If you say it is wrong, then of course the whole constitution of the country is wrong. But at the time when we were drawing up the constitution, we agreed on several points. One of that is, among those that we agreed to, is that Malay is the national language, or at least Malay is the basis of the national language. That Islam is the official religion of the country. Now, every time we mention that, we say Malay is the national language, but all other languages can be used. So you can continue to use your own language. And when we say Islam is the official religion of the country, we also say in the same sentence that other religions can be practiced freely in Malaysia. So we make provisions for people who are not indigenous. But then, of course, the argument now is that the Malays are not indigenous. And if we reply to that, we are racist. That is the problem now. And we are paralyzed almost. When I talk about the Malay race, I've been labeled a racist. But why did I talk? I talk in response to what they say about the Malays, and that is racist. So we are very conscious about our own race. And in this election, racial issues becomes very important. So we, at this moment, we cannot yet behave like the Malaysians of the future, who will be true Malaysians irrespective of their racial origin. I only hope that in the future they can have at least one language that they can use with each other without having to have an interpreter. Thank you.
The last two questions for now, unless if Tun Mahathir is willing to accept more questions.
How much time do I have?
10 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, 10 to 15 minutes. I'll try and give short answers if I can. I talk a lot.
Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum. Thank you very much for your time with us. And when I think it's pity that to say that you are still good, very good health as well as my name is Ajit from Singapore. We last hosted you during your visit to our university back in 1997. Now, I'm still here, partly because my son is autistic. Now, being a trained medical doctor yourself and very visionary Prime Minister, or former Prime Minister, can I just ask your opinion or your views on the government policy and their attitude towards disabled kids, disabled community, as many of us who so happen to be around abroad, be it UK, US or Australia, who have got disabled children, happen not to go home simply because of the treatment that we get back in Malaysia. Pretty much they are treated as third, fourth class citizens back home. Now that's one. Basically, if you've got the money, that's fine. You can send your kids to private sector. Otherwise, it's difficult for them. So I just wonder whether Tun can share your views with us. Thank you very much.
I do not know what the situation is in England, because I read in the papers today someone saying, let's hope that bad treatment is not normal. This is with regard to the NHS. In other words, you go to the hospital in this country, you may be made to wait quite a long time before you are attended to. This is what people told me. I don't know. I don't have that experience. But in Malaysia, we try our best. We are still a developing country. But I think if you compare to other developing countries, you'll find that we are way ahead of them. We have free medicine for the whole country. Now, this was started during the time of the British. The British wanted their own medicine, so-called Western medicine, to be made available to British expatriate officers. Then they decided it should be available to all government officers. And then some very kind soul decided that we should give free medicine to everyone. Now, this was during the British time, when one bottle of this CPK, OPI, the cough mixture, standard cough mixture, cost 1 cent. Today, we are giving free medicine, and each capsule is $5. And you have to take 4 capsules a day, and take it for several days. And if it is free, the government will be out of pocket. But the government is trying its best to help hospitals and clinics, and also to look after the disabled. But of course, we are not as advanced as the advanced country. We are not yet an advanced country. So once we become advanced, maybe thanks to all of you when you come back, then we can have better treatment for the autistic child or other orang kurang upaya, OKU. We do look after them. We do try to show a kind of friendly attitude towards them. We have special sitting places in buses sometimes, in trains, and we try our best, but we have a lot of volunteers who look after the disabled people. But I must admit that it's not at the level of the UK. I hope you will come back and find out, because if you have any difficulty, I will try to help you out. Thank you.
My name is studying Financial and Leverage. Saya tak ada soalan. Saya cuma nak ucapkan terima kasih banyak kepada Tun dan banyak penjelasan kepada rakyat Malaysia. Itu saja.
Saya Katan dan kami semua memang sayang dekat Tun. Kenapa negara kita masih membenarkan sistem vernacular dalam sistem sekolah kita? Tak bolehkah kita hapuskan terus?
Sebenarnya kita sedar bahawa kerana kita ada sekolah yang menggunakan bahasa yang bukan bahasa kebangsaan, dengan itu kita dapati anak-anak kita tak bercampur sama sekali. They don't mix. Anak-anak kita pergi sekolah yang berlainan. Melayu kepada National School, Cina kepada Chinese School, Tamil kepada Tamil School. So they don't have a chance to mix. Yet when they grow up, the world that they will live in will be a mix of people, but they have no experience. But on the other hand, we agreed at the time of struggling for independence that the Chinese can retain their language and their schools. We agreed. We cannot renege on that agreement, unless of course it is the Chinese themselves who insist that there can be only national schools. But for a long time there will be Chinese schools and Malay schools and national schools which use Bahasa Malaysia, and therefore they will not mix. And it is difficult to think of them striking up friendship even between people of different races in Malaysia. Yet, when a country is ruled by a majority Chinese, they forbid Chinese schools. Singapore does not allow Chinese schools. They have all to go to English schools. Not only that, Nanyang University, which was started when I was still studying in Singapore, it was started as a Chinese university. The moment Singapore was independent of Malaysia, the first thing that the Singapore government did was to close down Nanyang University and absorb it into the National University of Singapore. So Singaporeans speak one language, English, not Chinese. They speak English. Now they are trying to learn Mandarin. because there are 1.6 billion Chinese in this world. So it is a great incentive to learn Chinese because we have to trade with them. But mostly Singaporeans do not learn Chinese, they learn only English. And if they want to study the language, they are allowed to study, but the government does not provide for such a school where Chinese is the medium of instruction. You can do that in Singapore, but if you try to do that thing in Malaysia, the protests will be huge, and we are not prepared to face the Chinese community when they are, well, not happy with the government.
Thank you. Do you have a question? You have a question? No. You have a question from the center?
Good evening, Dr. Mahathir. My name is Air Rahman, and I'm from the School of Oriental and African Studies. So I have one question. One of the apparent differences between the BN coalition and the PR coalition is that within the BN, the component parties is premised on racial exclusivity. Like in UMNO, only Malays can join UMNOs and so on and so forth. Looking at his history, Dr. On himself advocated that UMNO be open to all races. So do you think that this structure within BN, which is premised on racial exclusivity, will it change or will it endure? Or do you anticipate performance change within BN itself? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I would like to point out that the parties in the opposition, the three parties which form the opposition at the moment, are supposed to be not possible. They are supposed to be multiracial. But invariably, these multiracial parties, whether in the government or in the opposition, they are not actually multiracial. There is one dominant race in that party with a few people from other races. So basically, it is still a racial party. We have this, for example, this Gerakan, it says it's supposed to be multiracial, but it is almost entirely Chinese. The DAP is supposed to be multiracial. Also, the leaders are all Chinese. When they had their recent election of their Central Working Committee, CWC, there's not a single Malay or Indian who's been elected to the governing committee. So obviously it is actually a Chinese party with a small minority of other races. So far, we don't have any real multiracial party in Malaysia where all the races are thoroughly mixed up and there is no dominant race. In the Barisan Nasional, we admit what we are. We are a racial party. We started off that way. But we are willing to work with each other. I mentioned just now the word kongsi, sharing, cooperation. In the Barisan Nasional and in the alliance before, we agreed among ourselves that the wealth and the power in the country should be shared between the three different races. Later, of course, the tribal people in Sabah and Sarawak also had their share in the BN. So the BN as a whole is multiracial. But individual parties within the BN, there are 14 parties, they belong to the particular race which dominate their party. So we cannot run away from race at the moment in Malaysia. And I'm afraid today the racial identification is even worse than before. People talk about race. When you talk about Malaysia, it is a condemnation of one race by another, which is still race-based. So we are perhaps not mature enough. Maybe people in the future will not be identified by their race, but they are all Malaysian, Satu Malaysia. But at the moment, I'm sorry to say, my observation is that the races are drawing apart. They are not coming together at all. At one time, the national schools were attended by Malays, Chinese, and Indian. Of course, the teaching language was English at that time. But once you convert it into a Malay medium secondary school, then the Chinese left en bloc, and went back to the Chinese schools. And the Indians, if they have any Indian school, they will go back to their schools also. It's the mentality. We have not yet got over the fact that we belong to different races, but we have gone to the extent of saying, let us work together. Let us share these countries between us. Let us share power and let us share the wealth of this country between us so that our country can remain peaceful and stable. And when it is peaceful and stable, it can grow, and our share of the economic cake or whatever will be much greater than the whole cake at the beginning. That is the premise of the Barisan Nasional. There is no such undertaking by the three parties in the opposition. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jonathan. I'm from the University of Reading. And I followed your comments earlier this year that people of Malaysia have become sophisticated and they're able to use democracy. They've exercised their right to demand things, money and so on from the government, which is not entirely a good thing. And I also noticed your comments just now on how people take a very negative attitude towards race. So could you please comment on how ready and sophisticated, how well equipped you think the Malaysian people is to use their democratic rights, and how mature you think they are when it comes to exercising that power? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. But let's be pragmatic. Let's be practical about these things. Yes, we want to be of one race. We want to be of one nation called Malaysia. But we cannot even speak to each other. For example, if I stand here and speak in Malay, a lot of people won't understand. If I speak in English, also some people won't understand. But obviously, if I speak in Mandarin, there will be a lot of people here who will not understand. We don't even have one single language. Until you have one single language which everybody can speak, then it will not, until then, we will not be able to become one racial entity. You go to America, you want to become an American citizen, you have to pass a language test. But not so in Malaysia. Everybody who became, of the 1 million people who became citizens because of this agreement between Tunku Abdul Rahman and Sherlock, we really cannot speak to each other in one language. There is no single language that is common to everyone. Until then, we will always think of our race. As I told you just now, when I spoke to a group of Chinese small traders, I couldn't even use Malay, I couldn't use English, I have to use Pidgin Malay, Kampung Badis, Bada Malay, because they don't understand. And even then, I suspect they didn't quite understand what I was talking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. I'm sure that it is a memorable event for us here today. I would like to pass the mic back to the MC.